To begin today's show, we're pleased to be joined now by Pete Lucido. He is the Macomb County Prosecutor, joining us now on the MegaCast. Prosecutor, thanks for being with us today.
Tyler, and good morning to listeners.
Good morning to you as well. So some concerning things happening in our schools as of late, some new social media trends, particularly on TikTok, trends such as the devious licks trend, which had been really coming into the limelight late last month, where kids were stealing affects from the school or damaging property of the schools while in the school to try to get trending on the social media. And we also have some additional new concerns now and new trends, particularly one where this month the challenge is to slap a teacher. This is something that's being particularly focused on in your department up there at the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office. How is that being addressed, and just how seriously does the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office take these offenses among children?
Well, first of all, they call it the Tik-Tock challenges. And I don't know who came up with it, but it's wrong. And it's against the law if you're going to do something that is illegal. So, number one, we have to look at our school district. We have a very large school district here in Macomb County. Between the ISD and the rest of them, we're the largest school district other than Detroit. And as a result, we've got to be very vigilant. We've told the teachers we stand shoulder to shoulder, toe to toe with them. We will not allow this to happen. We told the school administrators that it is a zero tolerance policy in the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office as it relates to destruction of private property, because this is public property, our schools. Our public schools are public property, and it takes away from all taxpayers and families. And it shouldn't be that way. We should be using it in the classroom to educate and to grow the minds of the individuals instead of showing that criminal activity is acceptable. So what we've decided to do is we put out a press release. We put out a press in my advisory showing that we have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to crime. And I know that the schools have their own internal policies as it relates to the student handbook. Parents, be vigilant to explain to your child, and these are children because they're under the age of 18 in these high schools. When they turn 18, then they become an adult now in the eyes of the law, because raise the age just was passed into law, and it started October 1st. So if you're 18, you're charged as an adult. Now 17, you're charged as a juvenile. However, if the crime is heinous enough, we're going to wave you up and try as an adult. We're giving you notice out there, everybody. You commit the crime of the Tik-Tock challenge and slap a teacher, hit him in the head, hit him anywhere on their body, it's assault. It could rise to aggravated assault. It could rise to something otherwise if you have something considered a weapon in your hand. You destroy any school property, be on the lookout, because we're coming for you and we'll prosecute you. The student handbook can say you can be expelled. And remember one thing, the students that are listening, the parents, they can forfeit their right to go to a university and a community college because of the actions that were taken in their high school. They could also forfeit the possibility of getting student loans and aid necessary to facilitate their finances. Don't do it, is my statement. Don't do it.
We're joined by Macomb County Prosecutor Peter Lucito with us on the MegaCast, particularly addressing at this moment in time TikTok challenges such as the TikTok challenge and devious licks. In one scenario, both are severe, but one is much more severe than the other. In the case of devious licks, it is destruction of property, and as you said, it is destruction of public property. It's entirely unnecessary. It's not worth it. They're doing it for attention of people that, frankly, don't care about their best interests anyway. And then in the case of the latest TikTok challenge, the where they're slapping a teacher, that is assault. It is a very serious crime, and it is something that's going to be taken incredibly serious, as you said, a zero tolerance policy in Macomb County. In terms of the parents, as they're having these conversations, or they're preparing themselves to have these conversations with their kids, in the case of kids that are under 18, that are minors, how liable are parents in these situations for the damage to the public property in the school, but also, even on top of that, potentially liable for the actions of their children in regards to assaulting their teachers with these challenges?
I can tell you this, the Lucido family has been in the insurance industry for 4 generations. Any intentional act taken by a minor and or an adult is not going to be taken care of by your insurance. There's no insurance that says you can go out and commit a crime and we'll pay for it. And as a result, the parents are absolutely liable for the actions of their children up till their age 18. And at that time, if the child is in high school, 15, 16, 13, 17, the parents are going to be brought into this and have to make restitution. Why? It's their child. There's assume responsibility when you have a child. So that's a great question, Tyler. I appreciate that, because parents think they can just walk away and say, hey, it's your problem now. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But at the end of the day, parents are going to be brought into this. And I can appreciate a school that says in our handbook, we do not stand for any assaultive behavior both ways. One, against the child or the student. Two is against the teacher. That's room for a suspension or expulsion, depending on what the hearing brings. The last thing is, you destroy our property in our school, we don't need you in our school. We'd like people to be respectful and to be diligent on those that are doing that kind of behavior. Make sure you tell them, knock it off.
It's like any other behavior. You need to weigh the risk of whether or not it is worthwhile to seek that attention from people that you don't know, that frankly, more or less, don't care about you anyway, or to do the right thing and simply not commit these acts for that attention, because it isn't worth it. And on top of that, it's wrong. And something interesting that you did say regarding your zero tolerance policy that makes you think about, well, in some cases you have kids who have expressed repeated problem behaviors in their school. Obviously, that's going to be taken extremely seriously by their school district, and that's going to make their decisions at the district level regarding suspension, regarding expulsion, a lot easier. But in the cases of these particular challenges with the damage of property, and certainly with the assault, you could be the greatest performing kid and have the cleanest record possible. But if you slap your teacher, if you're destroying a bunch of property in your school for a TikTok challenge, that's not going to be something that helps you shoulder the burden of ultimately the crimes that you're committing, especially in Macomb County, where it's being taken this seriously.
And I'll tell you, Tyler, the parents ought to be aware, or at least be on the lookout for this. Anytime you see a TikTok challenge, the student is putting themselves in a position that they're going to be caught on camera from another student, which is for the cell phones and video. They're going to want to challenge themselves to get it on tape. They're committing the act of showing the police that I did it. Okay. And the last thing is this: every school I've been in has some type of monitoring devices up and down the hallways, in the classrooms at some point. Be aware that you're going to be caught on video. We have our first warrant getting signed right now for the same thing, that TikTok challenge, destruction of property. It's caught on the camera at the school. So the student didn't say I didn't do it, because it's all on video. Henceforth, somebody better be wary of doing something like this, because they could wreck their entire future by just one action of not thinking.
And it's also irresponsible, too, to consider this as a kid, and certainly as a parent, as a situation where, they're not going to take this all too seriously in investigating this or in prosecuting this, because I'm just a kid. I don't know any better. But there you are in that video. You're not only showing that you've committed this act, you're not only showing yourself in action committing a crime, you're also showing intent, and reckless intent in many cases here, especially with the assault and in certain destruction of property. And you're showing right there on camera, hard evidence, undisputable, that you simply don't care. That's going to be looked at incredibly seriously by a prosecutor and by a judge and or a jury as well, correct?
That information comes in, a judge, a jury, probation department, school administrators, disciplinary actions that are taken. It's all discoverable and it's all actionable, and everybody's going to look at that. You have no defense to that, because it shows you doing an action that was unprovoked. Unprovoked means this: you go up and slap a teacher, you start spray painting on a wall, you break property that belongs to the public. Public should hold you and will hold you. In our office, in the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office, under the direction and leadership of Prosecutor Lucido, we're not going to stand for it. Zero tolerance. Prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, make them pay, because the public doesn't deserve this type of treatment, and neither do those people that are supposed to be educators. They're in a classroom to educate. They're not in there to get slapped in the back of the head or, beat up. That's not what they're there for. In fact, I don't call that just disrespectful. I call it downright criminal.
We're joined by Pete Lucido. He is the Macomb County Prosecutor, joining us on the MegaCast today, and transitioning from the TikTok challenges to another effort by your office. Your office recently unveiled a first in the state kind of appeals process for victims of crimes. In particular, this would give victims and their families a chance to appeal decisions made by your office when you're investigating a crime and ultimately decide not to pursue charges, or to pursue charges that the families of the victims or the victims themselves believe are not just or are not proper. They can appeal this. How does that system work? And ultimately, what was the decision behind enacting this program in your office?
So, Tyler, I appreciate that question, and I hope that all prosecutors' offices follow suit on this, and it goes like this. As a former probation officer in Oakland County, as a former public defender in Wayne County, as a 30-year veteran as a criminal defense lawyer, as a lawmaker, both as a state representative and a senator, and now the Macomb County prosecutor, Peter Lucido looked at every right an individual has to go ahead and appeal a conviction or a charge that was brought. In regards to a prosecutor, you are presented by the investigation of police agencies. So in Macomb County, we have 27 police agencies, including the Macomb County Sheriff. They bring their body cams, they bring their in-car video, they bring doorbell cams, they bring written statements by witnesses. They have all the evidence brought up, and they're asking for a warrant to be signed as to these charges that they believe should be charged. They, the police. The prosecutor's office is an independent body from investigation. We do limited investigation. What we do is look at the evidence and see whether the elements of the crimes can be made as to what the officer is asking us to bring as far as charges. We then say no or yes, or we can make these other charges. And if we don't charge, the officers have a right, because they are representing victims. They're out there investigating for victims, to go to our appellate division. Our appellate division is a firewall between the warrant division and the appellate division for warrant, with a person in appeals and two that are seasoned trial attorneys, to see if the warrant division got it right. If the warrant division didn't get it right, they can issue, by way of this appeal, the warrant and have the police proceed. What recourse, and I asked the question to your listeners, what recourse do the police have if we don't issue the warrant? They got to go back to the victim and say, prosecutor's office isn't bringing charges because they don't believe they can make the elements of the crime. And this happens a lot. It's not a little bit. But why does a defendant have every right after a conviction to go appeal their conviction? Why does a defendant have a right to hold a probable cause hearing to see if there was enough probable cause for that warrant to issue as charged? I believe police officers, and I stand firmly with them, that if you don't like the decision of the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office, then bring it to the appellate division of the warrants on behalf of your victims that are out there. And let's see if we got it right in the first case. But right now, we've had a half a dozen or dozen, maybe more, maybe 20 of them, and we've had a couple overturned because prosecutors have different minds and they think they can make the charge. And therefore, I think it's a great idea, because now you have another set of eyes looking at it to see whether or not those charges can be brought, whether those elements can be made, and whether or not we did it right.
Yeah, and the point that I love in that statement that you just made in this regard is that defendants who are being accused of these crimes, who are in some cases convicted of these crimes or in other cases acquitted, they have the right to appeal the decision of the courts, to appeal their cases after the fact and maybe have those overturned. But in the cases of those who are victims of these crimes, whether they believe they've been a victim of the crime or they are, and there's some sort of a wrongful decision or incorrect decision that's made somewhere in the process, they really don't have a whole lot of those options to say, we would like to get a second set of eyes on this. And in this case, and you did say that directly to Fox 2, where you were quoted saying you should have the right to a second set of eyes, or in this case, multiple sets of eyes, reviewing to see if what you brought is the real deal, and closed quote. That's important because in these cases, there are human elements to it. People do make mistakes. People do miss things, or in some cases, one person's interpretation is different from the other. And it's important that everybody has their say properly in the matter, and that ultimately the right decision is made.
It's like test taking. Some see the issues, all of them. Some see only a portion of the issues. Mm-hmm. I believe that in the criminal justice system, nothing's perfect. Absolutely nothing's perfect. We get it wrong, but we're going to win them fairly. We're going to lose them squarely. We're going to win them fairly, but we'll lose them squarely if we lose them. And the other thing is, I believe that a system that has this appeal right reduces the burden on the officers that investigated it and the victims that want that second chance of having somebody look at it to give them healing and closure as to what happened to them. But if I can't have a defendant where the elements of the crimes can be made, I'm going to put the victim through additional victimizing by not being able to make the case and put him through a lengthy trial. And that's just outright wrong. So if the defense has the same benefits and protection of the law, so should the victims.
We're joined by Pete Lucido. He is the Macomb County Prosecutor, joining us today on the MegaCast, and it's all about the continued effort throughout the justice system and at all angles to provide that balance, to balance those scales, as is the symbol of the justice system for everybody involved, whether it be defendants, whether it be those that are the victims of crimes or those who are accused of crimes. Everybody should have an equal chance to have their case heard. They have to plead their case and to say their piece and to make sure that they're being done right by all elements of the law. Prosecutor, we appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Tyler. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy your weekend that I hear is going to be a cold one, so put a coat on.